everyone, welcome to the Horror Realm Live. We're here tonight for another roundtable. This is our first ever horror author roundtable. So today I have some special guests with us. The first one, listen, this guy is nasty. Listen, he's been on my show before. He said he likes to eat ass. I got my man, Chuck Nasty. Chuck, welcome back, man.
Always good to be here.
Oh, yeah. My next guest. Listen, I met this guy in person at Scarefest in New Jersey last year. Awesome guy. By the way, if you haven't seen our interview, amazing interview, huge horror fan. I have my man, Jason Marinko. Jason, welcome back, man.
Happy to be back in the realm.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. All right, so listen, for anybody who's the first time watching the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. But let me tell you a little bit about what the Horror Roundtable is. I'm going to ask my guests 2 random questions. They don't even know what the questions are. And I'm going to have them answer them as best as possible. Now, this question that I'm going to be tossing out there, Chuck, you do splatterpunk. And the question I'm going to ask is, so there is a myth around the indie horror community that splatterpunk is a talented type of horror writing, and that it is gross and grotesque, and there's no artistic to it. How do you feel about that?
I mean, it's kind of bullshit. I mean, when it comes down to more or less anything, like I consider myself a hardcore author, a hardcore horror author, because I write stuff that's extreme and splatter. Extreme being stuff that's gross for the sake of being gross, and splatterpunk usually has some kind of a social message behind it, behind the disgust and all that. I think that a lot of times it depends on if you go from the new school or the old school. The new school is there's a lot of authors out there that just go for the gore. They just go for the complete disgust and the depravity, and they don't really stick too much to a story. I mean, they have a story. It's just not usually like, it's not a full story. It usually doesn't feel that way. I think people that, because there is a lot of bad press, if you will, when it comes down to splatter and extreme. And I think as long as you have a story, I mean, like that's what I always try to do. I always try to make sure whatever I do, I have a good story behind it. And then I just sprinkle in the gross to make me happy. I think it's fun to write. People that think that writing hardcore horror is talentless, well, you're judgmental and need to fuck off. That's how I think about it. Because I think if somebody's a good writer, they're a good writer no matter what they're writing. But if they can't tell a story, it doesn't fucking matter. So, you know what I mean? That's how I look at it. You know, some people can tell a story, some people can't. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, as they say. And, sometimes people can, some people can go, away from what they're actually doing, just to be gross. And, I'm all for all of it, but yeah, that's, I think that, somebody that actually has that take on things is, ignorant, and shows, a lack of a significant genitalia. So that's how I feel about that.
And Chuck, a comment just came in from you. It came from Peter Anthony. He said, "Hey Chuck, I eat ass too, man. Ass eat club."
God damn it! That one show.
Peter, I love you, brother.
Yeah.
All right, Jason, it's your turn. How do you feel about those comments against splatterpunk?
Well, yeah, I'm listening to say the genre is overall talentless. I mean, people are gonna say what they're gonna say. I had someone come up to my poster at a show, an older woman, and she's like, why do you make this? And she pointed to my poster, and I said, it's what I made. She said, but what is the, all? And she's referring to the Reaper on the Avenger poster, and I just said, like, there's plenty of other authors here for you. This is not the book for you. I'm okay with telling someone that. It's not for everyone, you know. I mean, sometimes I flip through the pages and go, my God, what were you thinking? You know,
Oh yeah.
like giving people flaming enemas. I'm like, well, where did that even come from? It was you wrote, nobody else did it, but you know, some people really like it. People like that would be in horror realm, so that's why we're here, right? So to each his own, and you know, just like with anything, you know, if you don't like it, no one's forcing you to consume it, but there is an audience, and that's why we do this.
True.
And I totally agree with both you guys. Like Spider Punk is not my cup of tea when it comes to horror writing, but that's what's great about horror. Horror has so many different subgenres in it that, like, you don't have to like everything.
It's true.
Well, you know, Trav, just to think about it, when I did get to talk to you, we talked about how we like a lot of more visceral horror that gets in your head and everything. But then we went on for minutes talking about the Green Inferno, which is
Exactly.
is cannibalism and everything else. I was like, well, you know, we're kind of contradicted ourselves a bit. So it depends on you. Yeah, but horror has really come a long way to where we have so many subgenres. I remember categorizing the book. Chuck, you may have had this experience when you have to catalog your book and everything. What is your genre? And it's like, well, revenge. Mine is primarily. Then it's body horror. Like, all right, how much body horror qualifies for body horror? Like, you know, how many bodies do I need to drop in this book? So it's there's so many subgenres that you know, I see other authors that shows, and I'm just like, wow, I did not know that was a thing. So it's incredible. You know, I wish it was like this when I was a kid, you know, to enjoy this much in the horror genre that there is, you know, because we had slashers, you know, that was kind of it, you know, that was all we really had to work with, and unless you got older and you dug back to you know, the classics, your Last House on the Left, and your you know, I guess your King books at that time were mainstream, but other than that,
yeah. But I mean, but King, and that's the other thing that people kind of forget about is, you know, a lot of the older King stuff is pretty extreme. There's a lot of extreme stuff in it. Of course, King, you know, a few of those extreme books, he doesn't remember writing them due to substance, which happens. But I mean, yeah. I mean, like, we didn't have triggers and shit like that. You know, it just all I had to see was horror. All I had to see on the side of that fucking book was horror, and I was sold. You know,
you were in, yeah.
You know, I learned as I went into whatever book I was reading that, oh, okay, this is pretty crazy, pretty out there. So for people to say that, you know, to think that anything extreme and hardcore horror, splatterpunk, whatever, is talentless or whatever the fuck. Well, Stephen King's the king for a reason, and you know, you can go back and Clive Barker, who I recently met, and that was a dream come true. You know, that guy is probably one of the greatest writers of all time, and you know, it just shows how closed-minded people are, and they read one book that they don't agree with, and they immediately, you know, pigeonholed it, all the other books because of that one book. And I think that's complete bullshit when it comes down to it, you know.
We talked about in the last show where I said, you know, a lot of people say horror is you know, oh, that's goofy, or that's cheesy, or, you know, like vampires, oh, that's and I always say those are the people that they got to laugh it off. They got to laugh it off because they can't come to terms with a reality of something like that. You know, they hide in humor. Oh, I don't watch that. I can't read that shit. You know, that's always like, it's too much for them.
Yeah.
It's too much for them to cope. So I always say good horror makes me appreciate my own life. Being alive. If something a really good horror, it's like, wow, I thank everything I didn't go through that, because that was something.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is when you write stuff that is, if you're not writing something that has to do with creatures and stuff, and you're writing about like humanity at its all time, like evil, um, you kind of tap into something there that it's like, well, like I've gotten my most recent book, Lot Lizard Stew. It's gotten good reviews. I did have one review, which it was still a good review, but they also didn't like the fact that there was a lot of essay in it and whatnot. Um, but it's kind of like sometimes you have to show the evil side of reality, and sometimes in order to understand a character and understand how bad a character is or how bad a situation was, you have to go a little bit deeper. Not everybody's willing to do that, and I understand completely. And also with that, it also makes me more of a paranoid, anxious person, because being a parent, around every corner is a serial killer. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, you're staying real close to me, and it's like, well, why? Because I wrote something the other night that might actually happen. Come here. You know what I mean? Like I don't like to leave the house anymore. I do on occasions, but there's always an anxious feeling for it. But I forgot where I was going with that. Sorry.
But
The
you guys
reality
think,
is,
yes,
you're right.
but do you guys think that even in the indie horror realm, there is like this hierarchy with some creators that, oh, if you write this, you're the cream of the crop. If you write this, oh, that's trashy. That's lowbrow.
I've noticed, and I don't know if this is actual, but a lot of fantasy kind of horror, like where it tiptoes the lines of horror, but it has like this fantasy romance wrapped up in it. That seems to be doing well. I don't know what it's about, but I see it doing well. And so that's like a genre that I knew nothing about till I started seeing book shows. But I don't know if people generalize kind of, like you write creatures, this guy writes. I couldn't say for certain, Travis. I just wouldn't know.
It's kind of interesting though, because I did a con last year, TBR in Knoxville, and there was a whole middle area that was all horror. It was all the horror guys, for the most part, and then sprinkled around. But there was a lot of people there who were wanting fantasy stuff, and it kind of blew my mind actually, because that's not really minus Clive Barker stuff. Like I'm not a fantasy guy at all, but but that is something else though, is the this dark fantasy romance stuff or whatever. The same people that read that stuff calls what we do smut, and they label it and give it some bad name or whatever. I'm like, I've read some of these dark romance books, and they are only a step away from being an extreme story in some cases. There's like a lot of weird erotica that surrounds itself in SA and things of that nature, and that gets overlooked a lot. So it's like it's kind of like you like what you like, and sometimes people forget that, oh well, there was that one book that happened and this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. But that one book that guy put out was just so vile. Like, it's tomato. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I told you, Travis, I reached a point in the story where I wrote a part and I said, I almost self-censor, but I always stop myself from self-censoring. And I went to the Rite Aid, and at that time, the E.L. James 50 Shades of Grey book was out. I think it was the sequel to it or something. And they still have a paperback section with your top 10. And I said, let me see something, I flipped for it. I was like, yeah, I'm all right. I'm good. I can do what I wanted to do. And really, because not everybody's going to get between the lines there. And, at that time they called it mommy porn, but the books did very well.
That's true.
They tapped into the subconscious of people who could, they're not going to look at what they call smut, but this book's popular and this happens. And man, those all three books took off. And that was an indie author that made those.
Yeah.
So it's just a question of finding the right audience for stuff. that that likes what you got there.
Yeah. 50 Shades of Grey, man, I mean, all the respect in the world to somebody that that puts something out and it gets that popular, like completely. I've never read a full book of that shit.
It's pretty graphic in parts. What I flipped through was graphic. I was like, this okay, I could do this. Like I could do what I want.
Yeah, it has its moments, but there's also points where you can realize that the author just lives in a fantasy and they have no idea what they're talking about when it comes down to certain things. Like there's just very cheesy. Because like I said, I've never read a whole thing, but I've read a couple of chapters. My ex had one of the books, and it's just more power to them for putting that out. But I think what a piece of shit. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it. I just people have a tendency to rush to things that because 50 Shades of Grey ended up on Walmart shelves and shit like that, and it's like those are the people, it's like that's like beginner smut in my opinion. You know what I mean? When it comes down to it, I say smut because a lot of people say that's what I write is smut. Whatever, call it whatever you want to call it. You had 50 Shades of Grey and you loved it, so I just kind of upped it, and you don't like that. A lot of us up it. I mean, there's people that do more extreme shit than I do, a lot more extreme stuff. You know what I mean? And people eat it the fuck up.
Yeah.
I think that people forget that it's not reality. It's all fantasy, and it's all something that we came up with. Where things do shock, and we want to shock, but we also want to make you think a little bit too. Be afraid of these things that are out there, and basically that rant is just to say that fuck that goddamn series.
To touch on what you said earlier about the uptick in fantasy, do you think a lot of that stems from younger people that grew up with the Twilight series that bridged into that fantasy kind of? Because I mean, when you said it's a piece of shit, you made me think of what King said about Twilights. They asked him about, he said, I just can't read it,
Mm-hmm.
And that was his take. I just can't read it. Now, I never got to look at the Twilights, but yeah, I mean, the movies, whatever. I could watch a movie, but
I can't.
I tried to watch the movie. I tried to.
Because they turned into wolves. I always go for a good werewolf, man. I'm like, all right, the wolves are gonna fight the vampires, man. All right, I could give you an hour of time, Well,
that's why we have movies like Silver Bullet and The Howling. We don't need Twilight and their sparkling vampires. Yeah, no, I agree with King completely on the Twilight stuff. But you're right though. A lot of the fantasy that comes from the younger generation these days, it does come from the Twilight shit.
Because I mean, it was huge. I mean, that was a phenomenon for years.
Oh yeah, it was disgusting.
Yeah, I agree. I got a comment that just came in. Said this comes from X Horror Short Films. This convo reminds of the fight online about Megan is Missing. It's about a teen girl that meets a guy online, but the guy is a predator. The fight online was at the end of the film. There was ASA.
Yeah, that's one. My ex, who I'm still really good friends with, she actually watched it for like the second time the other day for some reason, and she was talking about it. And I don't really personally have any want to watch it. I might at some point, whatever, but. But it does do the same thing that that Extreme does though, or Splatter. I mean, Splatterpunk if you want to, because it does have a social commentary behind it. It showing that, hey, youth of America, maybe you shouldn't trust everything online. Maybe not everything you read online is real. Maybe not everyone that you know online is real. And bad things can happen, because it does. It's one of those things that scares the hell out of me as a parent, is that movie happens every fucking day. And it's a very graphic movie for what I'm told. And the scenes are very hard to watch. for what I'm told. But unfortunately, in the world that we live in today, it's a reality, and some people live in this falsified mindset to where they don't have any idea of what reality actually is. And Megan is missing is a great social commentary on the youth of today and how much they trust their social media pages and the people they meet on there when it's all filters and lies, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, you literally can be whoever you want. And X Horror Short Films also said the filmmaker said he did that to scare parents into watching what their kids do online more.
Yeah, more power to them.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's I always said, and we talked about this as well, Trevor.
We did.
Horror movies
Yes.
prepare you for the horrors of life.
Yes.
They give you the instincts that you should have that are built. They wind up being built into you. You know, it might not be in like everyday settings and everything. What the comment is saying about that, there was one with the guy. He's in a lot of movies, but it's kind of like that where his kid's missing and he's trying to track the kid through all this, backtrack through all the social media accounts. He was in the movie Harold and Kumar and everything.
I know what you're talking about. It's called, yes, I know what I'm talking about. Great movie.
Good tension in that.
Yes.
It kept you the whole time. So yeah, but this one sounds like even more intense and more reality based. Well, that one was reality based, but that's called Megan is Missing. Is that a feature film, Jeff?
It's on. It went straight to video, and I think it's on Tubi or one of those kind of places. Whatever. It's easy to find.
I know you review those on Tubi, right, Trav?
Yes, I have not reviewed Making It Missing, but I will. I mean, that's now on my list.
Okay.
Chuck, I have a question, man. Listen, when you do essay in your books, right? What kind of mind space do you have to be in to come up with a scenario like that?
Well, when you're writing certain scenes, and you know they're going to be brutal. Okay, in my case, when I know that I'm getting ready to write something that's going to be challenging to write for the fact of like, you know, like I won't lie, you know, I'm not proud. Like when it comes down to it, like I've teared up at some of the shit that I've written. But a lot of the essay that I write is either just completely just ridiculous, like to the point of it's almost humorous. I know that sounds bad, and I don't mean the essay is humorous. I'm just saying like there are certain stuff where the situation is just too ridiculous for it to even be a thing. But there are some things that I write that I've read about or I've been talked to about from friends who went through certain things. I don't know what's going to happen before I sit down and write. And you know, in Law Lizards 2 being the newest one, great example because it's about a truck driver who happens to be a hardcore SAer and serial killer, and it's automatic. When I had the idea, I knew that I was going to be writing some pretty harsh scenes. I just automatically knew it. You know what I mean? Because I watch a lot of true crime and things of that nature. So it's like, you know, considering the fact that the FBI believes that we have multiple serial killers that have never been caught because they're truck drivers. The reality of it is bad things happen. And when I realize that a scene's coming up, I don't really think about it. I just do it. And some really bad shit happens. You know, I also try to put it like, you know, where everything that I see when I write is like a movie. I put myself in the mind of a director, you know, or screenplay writer or something, you know. It's like, okay, in my head, it's all acting. It's all acting. These characters aren't real. It's not, it isn't always a pleasant thing. Um, but I mean, there is, with anything that I do that's brutal when it comes down to death scenes, SA scenes, like that or whatever, like there is a bit of a release. Um, no matter, it doesn't mean that I want to do those things. It doesn't mean that I have a fantasy of doing those things. It's just that I have a character that is completely fucking unhinged. He doesn't care. And I want you to know that he doesn't care. And the character in there is Al Ridgway. And he, at times in the book, is funny and he makes you laugh. And then you realize real quick he's still a piece of shit. He's not a good guy. And I have to, if I'm here alone and I've had a few drinks or whatever, like I get, have you ever seen that? You ever seen that scene from you ever seen the behind the scenes of The Shining? That shows Jack Nicholson getting into character right before he puts the axe to the door. Yeah. I do that kind of shit sometimes. If I'm really like, okay, this next scene's gonna be, I already know what it's gonna be. I have to get ready for it, and I get myself all hyped up, and I have to get into character. Character. Underline the word character. Character. This isn't real stuff. This isn't stuff that I want to do. None of us who write hardcore horror want to do these things that I know of. I know I don't. But you have to put your mindset in the mind of a villain to make the villain realistic. That makes sense.
It does. Jason, is the same thing with you?
Somewhat, but in my case, what Chuck said earlier, I really related to where I always say in Time the Avenger, I drop about 30 bodies in that book, and I enjoyed almost every one of them because almost every one of them deserved it. But there are the ones that aren't, and I'm kind of both. Writers always say, are you a plotter or your pantser, right? In Chuck's case, he writes by the seat of his pants. He has a general idea where he's going, and he takes off from there with the character. In my case, same deal, a little bit of both, but in the framework of, I told you I wrote it as a screenplay. So in the second act, I know this happens. And, if you read, I'm sure King's On Writing book, right? And in his On Writing book, he says, there is a muse for you, but the muse isn't going to show up until you put the groundwork in. So at about page 150, the groundwork's laid, you've put all that in, and they are a character, but they're real to you because you're in this with them. And I remember my girlfriend coming home from work that day, and I told her, I said, I killed them off today, and it was unreal emotional for me. It really was like somebody really died because you kind of made them real. So I definitely feel that. Now, when to hit on your question about when you're going to do something like the sex and everything like that in there, or like rape and all that, I just did a short story. And in the short, it's called There's No Miss July in the Month of August. And in that short, it's about this guy who hits a scratch off. He's infatuated with the pinup in his July calendar. He ain't turned it over to August. He hits a couple bucks on the scratch off. He's going to go buy himself something nice. He sees one girl kind of strung out looking and a cute girl going into a bar. And he decides, you know what? I got a couple $100. I'm going to get laid. He goes in. Before you know it, these girls are roping him along. They've called their drug dealer multiple times. The last time it's daylight. They're still sitting in his car just blowing down lines. And one of the girls don't have money. And I didn't know I was going there in the story, but the drug dealer's like, pissed. You have me out here in scary hours. It's daylight. You don't have any money for the product. You're going to have to barter. And like out of nowhere, I'm like, I have like, he pops the trunk and you hear this thumping around and they're all skied up. the girl gets back in the trunk, and you know, the girl's crying, and she's like, "What happened?" She's like, "She told me I had to barter. He told me I had to barter," and she's like, "That motherfucker, you know, he bet me over. He said he was gonna fuck me from behind." Which she was okay with in the barter scenario. She's like, then he spit on his hand and shoved his dick up my ass. And I'm just like, I didn't know I was going there until she told it. You know what I mean? And I was just like, well, that one's not going to go over well at the writing group. But it did. It did. And they said, they're like, don't be like that with your stuff. Don't, because it was only 3 of the group there that night. And they were like, don't, you know, your raw is your way. And if your writing's raw, you have to let it be raw. I mean, if worse comes to worst, that's what the first draft's for. So, you know, I think it's good to be a little bit of both plotter and pantser. So, you know, when it comes to the hardcore stuff, I agree, Chuck, you probably have an idea you're heading that way. When you're going there, it's just like, how am I going about this? And how do I see it through? And as far as the release that you mentioned, I had to have these horrible things happen to the good people in my story, because I have to let you accept what's going to happen to the bad people thereafter.
Exactly.
I had to, you know.
It makes the conclusion. Is that a cat?
That's my cat. Yes.
Okay. Damn it, Travis was like, what the fuck is that? but yeah, no, completely. You know, when you show how bad a villain is, it makes the ending of that villain that more satisfying. You know, when you have, I mean, in Lot Lizards 2, there is a very brutal scene. There's a few brutal scenes, but one in particular is
oh, what does it do?
Oh, okay. But there's a very brutal scene that involves a woman's head in a toilet that is full of disgust, and yeah, and you can probably imagine what happens with her head's in the toilet. And I didn't know that is not at all where that scene was supposed to go. It just kind of happened because, I mean, by the end of it all, you're like, you think about, because there's a lot of people that have read Lot Lizards 2 and been like, man, you know, there are so many parts in it where, you know, Al is a complete piece of shit, but yet there's parts where you almost like him. And then you realize, wait, he's still a bad fucking dude. And I did it on purpose, you know, because how many serial killers, you know, that we've had through time, who have seemed like good guys, you know, they're your neighbor, you know, they could be a relative, you know, they could be your best friend, they could be all that shit. And the bad shit comes out, and, you know, like it's a fucked up mindset to be in when you write certain things. It really is. But I mean, you have to tell a certain level of brutality to make the satisfaction more satisfying when that villain gets theirs. Because for the record, I will say this: a lot of my stories and a lot of my books have a female that wins. So just throwing that out there, you know, before anybody wants to be like, meh.
All right. For the second question, I am going to be bringing another author in. This author, he's been on my show before. He actually had a book that was #1 on Amazon for 24 hours, right, Mark?
No, it was only #1 for like 3 or 4 hours. That was it. But
okay.
that one brief shining moment, and I've got the screen grabs to prove it. I was my title, my last book, Just Before Dawn, was #1 on the Amazon bestseller list for, I want to be sure I get this right, U.S. horror new releases. Okay, not the overall list, but just that one category. But I did it.
That's awesome as shit. I'll drink to that.
It counts. Yes. Mark, listen,
If
welcome.
if I had a snifter of my scotch with me right now, I would be toasting you, sir.
So for
Hell
the
yeah.
second question of the night, right now when it comes to indie horror writing, there is people say it can be oversaturated. I mean, we're seeing small presses go under at a rapid rate. Where do each one of you see when it comes to indie horror writing in the next 10 years? And
Ooh,
Mark, I'm
it's
gonna start with you.
I'll tell you what, I see indie horror writing and indie publishing in general to be right now to be shifting sands, and it's shifting under all of our feet right now. It's in a state of flux, and there's a lot of reasons why that is, and most of those reasons are out of our control. Much like, because I come from screenwriting in Hollywood and all that stuff. It's the same thing we see happening in indie film right now. Everything is shifting. People are running scared. They don't know what the heck is going to happen. And you see, that's the thing. They don't know what's going to happen because the old business models are no longer working because audience consumption habits are changing. And the thing for us as writers, as the content creators of our art, we have to be nimble. We have to be fleet of foot because we have to change very rapidly. The good thing about uh, indie authors who do their own stuff and the small indie presses too is because we're small, we don't have to do meeting after meeting after meeting, committee after committee after committee. We don't need 25 people to make a decision. We can make our decisions like that. And then we can take off, and we either reap the rewards or we suffer the consequences. But one way or the other, at least a decision got made, you know. Where it's going to be in 10 years, I couldn't say. All I know is that in 10 years, I'll be 73. I'll have about 5 or 6 more books out there. And unless I'm talking to you or unless I pass away before then, guess what? I'm going to be sitting right in front of this computer, banging away on the keyboards, writing my next novel. That's the only thing I know for sure. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Great answer, Mark. Great answer. Jason, I'm gonna shoot over to you.
From 2025 to 2035. I'll look at 2030 because I was talking to one of the managers at my day job, and I was like, look, I was like, where you at? She said, look, all you got to do is stay here till 2030. You could retire with your 25 years of say. I said, what 2030 are we talking about here? You see what's going on in the world? Is there even going to be money? Am I going to, what? I mean, so to forecast that is a virtual impossibility. But industry wise, I agree with Mark. Nobody knows which. It's a very predictive business, right? What do they like? They like vampire romance books. So let's go with Twilight things. What do they like in movies? Oh, superhero movies. That's that they killed that. They ruined that. But for horror though, there's always horror. Because horror don't cost a lot to make, and the returns are sometimes incredible returns on horror. I mean, we look at like I love that film The Witch by Robert Eggers.
Yes.
Slow burn, but damn when it burns.
Oh,
and
yeah. Yes.
Right. I mean, I haven't seen his newest Nosferatu, which I want to get out to, but I mean, he didn't. Yeah, I forget what the budget was on it, but it wound up kicking ass after it's got its extension. So horror is different than everything. Horror endures through, there's, like those, they always say, there's always a market for romance movies, gangster pictures, and westerns, but there's always that people's always willing to take a chance on some horror. I've had people come up to that table, look at the book, and go, I don't know what this is, but it looks kind of fucked up. I'll give it a shot. Thank you. I make one promise: it ain't boring. I wouldn't bore anyone, But in the next couple of years, I think there's everything ebbs and flows, and I just think, as Mark said, if we keep hammering away, it might not be your third book that hits, it might be the fifth one that is the killer. That's the one of ones. I mean, look at. I always love the personal story of John Grisham. I mean, John Grisham writes what he knows. He was a lawyer, but nobody knows. Like, he wrote A Time to Kill well before he wrote The Firm. He wrote A Time to Kill, and it fell flat. And he said, "Well, I'll write this other one, The Firm, and if nothing happens to that, well, the hell with it. I'll just go back to being a lawyer." And somebody bootlegs his book on like fax or something, and the agent calls him and says, like, I got good news and bad news. Some guy ripped off your book, but Paramount Pictures wants to make a movie, so it all balance out. And there we get John Grisham.
John Grisham and Stephen King give each other shit all the time because they're like best friends. Like, come on,
I got to participate in an online Q&A with them during COVID, and
okay, I know what you're talking about.
Did you see that one?
I think I did, actually. Yeah.
Awesome, man. And I asked them, I said, like, why don't you guys collaborate or something or other? And Grisham gave the answer. He's like, no. He said he writes too fast. He said a colleague of ours was collaborating with him, and he had all his pages done well before the colleague could even get in pace where they were with the story. But King said, the vampire law firm would be the one to go to. Because he hasn't done a vampire in a while, and Grisham being the law thing. So, but definitely enjoyed both of them together. Yeah. But I hope that answers. I just see it getting better for those who persevere, is what I see.
Yeah. As long as you don't quit, you have not failed. And I'm retired military, and believe me, once you start a course of action. Can I cuss on this show?
Yeah. Oh, you're horrible.
Once you start a course of action, once you are on mission, once you are taking the fight to the enemy, you don't fucking stop until either you have completed your mission or you are dead. Period. And I mean that quite literally. You don't stop until you have acquired your target, completed the mission, or you're dead. That's it. So as long as we as artists persevere and stay true to ourselves, stay true to our art, and stay true to what we're really trying to say with our work. Because for me, it's all about the subtext, as long as we do that, we're going to be okay. We may not be lighting our cigars with $100 bills, but we'll be okay. You know what I mean? At least that's my opinion.
I think that's completely great. But both of you all give great answers on that shit. In 10 years, okay, first off, horror. I remember as a kid being a horror fan, and you were a freak if you liked horror. If it was something, if you showed too much interest in horror or anything like that, or Stephen King, you were a freak. And look at it now. Terrifier 3 was a #1 fucking movie in the box office for the longest time. I love those movies, by the way. Horror's come back in a big fucking way. We had a couple of years where a bunch of bullshit was being put out movie wise. And then there was this reassurance of like resurfacing of horror, of slashers, of pulling no punches. And I think it's a beautiful thing, as well as it's also kind of aggravating because, it was our thing, growing up, we looked at things like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all that shit or whatever, as our home. That was where we felt comfortable. That's where we got a lot of this, at least for me, a lot of inspiration, a lot of motivation, and I was got crap for it. And now, man, I went to Scarefest last year in Lexington, Kentucky, and I saw so many Scream shirts and so many Terrifier shirts. Like it's crazy. It's completely insane how popular horror movies are now compared to the shit that I got as a kid.
Me too.
It's like, I mean, dude.
Yeah.
I remember when I first fucking got I was started reading Stephen King when I was in 4th, 5th grade. Okay, I got shit from everybody, teachers. They're like, "Oh, well, I would never let my kid read that." Blah blah blah. And it's like, well, I'm not your kid, and my parents fucking get it. Going on to the question of where do I think horror is going to be in 10 years? I think it's just going to fucking get better. There's it's going to be shorter. I think that novellas are kind of king at this point. A lot of people, they want to reach their quota, if you will, of how many books they read. And shorter books do the best. But I also feel that, somewhat like what Jason said, was that look at the world we live in. We have, bear with me. We have a situation where certain places are on fire. We can't figure out why they're on fire. But the Pope just released just opened up 5 portals. A lot of weird shit's going on. And in 10 years, where do I see horror being? I see it being almost non-existent because I don't think we're going to be here. I don't know how much life I have left in me. And I hate to even be that fucking way. But the truth of the matter is we've seen enough fucking evidence of aliens or ghosts and goblins and goobity gop and all that shit, which I believe in all of it. I don't think we're really gonna be writing the horror. I think we're gonna be living it, and that's where I think that it's gonna be in 10 years. We're not gonna be. Our books are gonna be there. They're still gonna be there, but they're only gonna be there for the ones that survive. So, as fucked up as that answer is,
it's fucking deep.
in 10 years, we're living Road Warrior. You know what I mean? Like, that's all I see at this moment. And our books will be there. They will still be there. But it will be to keep people entertained while the end times are around or whatever, That's my answer on that one.
We got no electricity, but we got these books.
Right.
Let's see.
We just got a comment that came in from X Horror Short Films. A few days ago, Amazon stopped new filmmakers from making an account with Prime Direct. New indie filmmakers cannot sell directly movies on Prime anymore. So that shows how unpredictable things are.
I wonder if they're going to have to go through an aggregator in order to get to Amazon. I know some filmmakers who really want to get on there, and it's been getting tougher and tougher. It's almost as tough for them to get on Prime now as it is to get anything onto Netflix. Talk about your gatekeepers with a high wall. Look that up in the dictionary. You'll see a picture of Netflix. You know,
It's tough.
It's tough. If I can just throw it out there, my for horror, my favorite channel on television is Tubi.
Mine too.
There's some great stuff on there. There's some crap on there, but you know that's the nature of the thing. Someone was talking about film budgets here a few minutes ago. I wrote a film that I sold the script like 9 years ago, and it just now recently in the last year got made into a movie for about $200,000.
Congrats.
Looks like a $2 million movie because the cinematography is just fucking incredible. And you know, it's on Prime and all this other stuff, but it's on Tubi. And when I tell people about it, I'm so subversive. I tell them to watch it on Tubi or to watch it on any of the multiple channels on YouTube, so that, yeah, they've got to sit through the commercials and stuff, but they don't have to pay a fee to the big conglomerate, you know?
Yeah.
And, but yeah, the movie only has 4 characters. Okay, just 4. 1 location.
Love
in and around a cabin in the woods. About 60-70% of the movie is just 2 people, and they're trying to kill each other. And the reason why, and that's the onion that gets peeled back layer by layer, you know, the reason why is, of course, what the whole movie's all about. Because it's not about these people. It's about their motivations and what has driven them to that place. And then I have something to say about the nature of vengeance and what vengeance can do to you if you allow it to take over your entire life. You know, it was like Friedrich Nietzsche said, be careful when you go to fight monsters, you do not become one yourself.
Truth.
And that's what restitution is all about. You know, and that's the pinnacle of my screenwriting career is that $200,000 movie. If I never sell another script, as long as I live, I can die a happy man because somebody other than me took one of my screenplays and actually got what the fuck I was really talking about. It's not about the violence and the fighting and the gore and the blah blah. That's all just window dressing to get you interested in what's really going on there.
Yeah.
You know, and the producers and the director and the actors who I've become friends with a couple of the actors that were involved, and they got it right from the very beginning. They got what I was trying to say, and the movie reflects that, and I'm very happy with it.
It's wonderful.
Check that shit out. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
How great was it to see your characters brought to life, though, and your script talking in an actual that must be wonderful.
Yes, it is. And I've had some movies made before, but this one will always have a special place in my heart because, like I said, they got it right. And that has not always been my experience in Hollywood. It's one of the reasons why I am now moving away from concentrating on the screenwriting, and I'm moving more into writing the novels. Because in the novels, I'm everything. I'm the producer, the director, the writer. I'm all the actors. I'm all the characters. I'm the special effects coordinator. I'm the lighting director. I'm the art director. I'm the sound designer. I'm everything. And for better or for worse, these are my novels. They have my name on them. And they're either going to rise or fall on their own. But they will always be mine.
Yeah.
And when you're a screenwriter in film, unless you are also directing, or unless you are also on the key creative producing team, a screenwriter can't quite take that same pride of ownership, because there are so many other people involved. It's such a collaborative effort on film. And with a book, no, it is the writer's unfiltered, unadulterated vision for that story and how it is told. And that's novels, baby. And for me, as I get older and my patience wears a little bit thinner with all the BS that goes with the Hollywood thing, man, for me, novels are where they're at, man. That's where the action is.
Oh yeah. No, I feel the same. I feel the same way about that. When I was younger, I thought it'd be cool to direct movies and things like that. And then as I got older, I realized I don't. That's just too much bullshit that goes along with it. And that is definitely the beauty about writing stories and writing books is the fact that you are everything, like you said. When I sit down to write, I always have certain actors, actresses, whatever in mind when some are living, some dead, and being able to do things that you wouldn't be able to do making movies. It's kind of the biggest plus about it.
You don't have to worry about budget, and you don't have to worry about a shooting schedule.
Right.
Hell
yeah.
And a good screenwriter always takes those things into account when they're writing. It's always in the back of their head. Oh God, if I do it this way, this is going to cost a shit ton of money. However, if I do it this way, it's not going to cost hardly anything. Like, you could write a car chase. Well, those are fucking expensive to do. However, you can rewrite the script to where it's a foot chase down a street and into an alley, or something like that. And that might cost them $1,000, where the car chase, that's going to run into the tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And so you're always keeping that stuff in the back of your head, because you're wanting your script to actually sell. And you can't write a big budget action script with car chases and explosions and cars rolling over and all this kind of stuff. You can't write that and then send it to a producer who's looking for a $2 million movie, because you're sending them a $20 to $40 million script, and they're looking for a $2 million movie.
Yeah.
So, it just, all this stuff comes into play. When you're writing a novel, you don't have to worry about it. It's not a concern.
I've tried to write one script. I was probably about 18. It was about the time I quit school. I was 18, and I watched Natural Born Killers, and I said, "Man, I want to write a script." I rented it, and I watched all the special features, all this shit. It was when DVDs were just becoming a thing and being more popular. And I watched that movie over and over again, and I watched the commentary and the backs, all that shit. And I was like, I want to do this. I want to write movies. And I spent a week and a half in my dad's basement writing a script. and I was about 150 pages. And then I realized I am just writing natural born killers with Satanists. And I was like, also, this is already going like, I mean, it was ridiculous, and it was too long too. That's kind of when I started realizing that I wanted to just write stories or whatever the hell, because writing scripts just. I've had a few friends that have been like, hey man, like, you know, we think it'd be cool if you wrote the script and blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, nope, because writing a script is not nearly like writing a novel, because of the fact of, like, for me, writing a script, there's just too many angles. There's too many things you have to put. You know, you have to put like the lighting. You have to put da 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 da. And you know, when you write stories and you write books and stuff, I mean, you have to have description and all that shit or whatever. But it's not nearly as specific, right? Like, and it comes more natural for me to sit here and write for 4 hours, and you know, and write 50 pages, and not worry about like a pause or anything like that. But when I remember writing that fucking thing, and I was like pausing every 5 minutes, and I was just trying to get and it's too much of a slow process for me. Anybody that can write a script, more fucking power to you, because this motherfucker's not doing
it. In 2017, Amazon Studios were still accepting unsolicited screenplays. You could, you know, without an agent, you could send a script to Amazon at that time.
Yeah.
I wrote Time the Avenger initially as a screenplay. It was a screenplay first. And it was a really interesting experience converting it to the novel, because they shut that down pretty quickly. You know, your borderline Me Too movement at that time, and stories like ours were, you know, they're not taking a shot on nothing like that. So when I convert Time the Avenger from a script to a screenplay, I found a lot of freedom, like Mark's saying, but then you lose visual limitations. Like, for instance, I have a scene where a bomb goes off in the house, where a guy sets a pipe bomb off that he's supposed to bring to the school, and to cut to the school and back to the house that you don't know the bomb's at the house. That's a film. That's a visual one. But I was able so much more to get into the characters' heads and let you know what's going on with them. There's no comparison to the novel. And to touch on another thing you said, Mark, nowadays, after studying screenwriting and everything, I look at a movie and those opening credits come on. If I see 4 screenwriters, I'm like, this is going to suck. This is going to suck. And sometimes you'll talk to someone and say, how was that? You know, the beginning and the middle were awesome, and it just dropped the ball at the end. Yeah, because some other guy wrote that.
Yeah.
And then they got it and we're like, all right, how do we make something of this?
And the other thing too is, because of the stipulations and the requirements through the union, through the WGA for screenwriters. For the credits.
Yeah.
You have to change at least 30% of the script to get credited. And if you change 60% of the script, you go up in rank. And then if you change more than that, you wind up being the top billed writer with everybody. And here's the thing, though, and this is what people will never know. You may see 4 screenwriters credited. What you don't see is the other half dozen screenwriters who did passes on it and polishes on it, who didn't change enough to actually get their names on the credit, but they were in there. The indie film from the 90s, Good Will Hunting, which was a huge hit, big indie thing. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are credited as the writers for that film. And when it won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay, they were the ones who got up there and made the acceptance speeches. Okay, now understand, I'm not knocking them. Okay, this is the system at that time in the 90s. Dig this. There were a total of 34 writers who had something to do with that screenplay at one time or another. 34. But 2 guys win the Oscar for it.
Yeah.
That's showbiz.
Yeah.
I know a
That's
friend
showbiz.
who went to go see the premiere in New York of the Shazam movie with The Rock,
Oh God.
or the Black Adam
Mhm.
movie, and
Uh-huh.
and he has a relation that is a legacy creator for DC Comics, and he's there and he recognizes one of the writers, like, from the comics. They said at the end of the film ends and the credits go up, and this guy starts going off, punching the hell out of the seats in front of him because he figured he was going to be credited for Black Adam.
Oh.
And they're like, no, we just took your comic book and put some stuff in it just because you wrote the comic book, you know. And then said the guy didn't know this. He was livid and he's just wailing on the seats in front of him.
Jesus. I'd be pissed too.
The writer's kind of a putz anyway, so it's like, you know. So, but you know, and there's all these cases of him having these volatile things, but that's like a little inside one that just me and the guy who told me now from that. But I see what you're. I'll be more open-minded, Mark, with the multiple writers. But more often than not, when you get one screenwriter on there, you look, it's good. It's good. It's one story, man. It's cohesive. Yeah. You know, and what you said about the budgets and the car chases, I just think of whenever they interview Tarantino and people, he said, when people ask me, how do I break through? He's like, I don't know, make Reservoir Dogs. I made it on X amount of dollars. Yes. We don't have much of a car chase in that. We have Harvey Keitel in an alleyway. We have Steve Buscemi running on foot, right? With the bag of diamonds. He gets hit by a car and it's thrilling, you know, it's
yes.
So you got to do the workarounds and everything, but in the book form you can do whatever you need to. And I'd like to ask you guys this, because this is something, and Travis could shed some light on this. A lot of the book shows that I've been going to do signings, I see so many film fests co-opt into the book show, and I meet the people and they're wonderful people, their stories sound exciting. I'm like, where do I watch it? And they're like, it's playing here at the film fest. These are horror shorts that they're only running through a circuit of shows. Mm-hmm. How does that work, and how is that advantageous to the creator, I guess is my question.
So I've interviewed a lot of filmmakers. Actually, X Horror Shorts Films is he makes short films and he's watching right now. So what a lot of filmmakers are doing is they are making these shorts and they're putting it in film festivals. So hopefully someone sees it and they would want to make it into a full feature-length film. So that's what they're doing with the film festivals.
A short film is a calling card to the industry for a young filmmaker. And if they have a good script, tight, that tells a story in a short amount of time and doesn't cost a lot of money. You know, if it's like 2 or 3 people in an apartment or something like that, that's easy to break down the script. It's easy to budget. It's easy to shoot. And if you have a good story and you can edit it together and, you know, do all the finishing on it, you have a shot, just a shot of getting someone's attention to where they want to take a meeting with you. Maybe they want to do something with the short, or they're going to ask you, have you ever thought about taking your short and making it into a feature? You know, or what kind of screenplays do you have? What are you working on? What would you like to do? And, you know, getting your foot in the door to one of these meetings is like, you know, that's the holy grail. It's just a question of whether or not you can fill it and drink from it. Yeah. You know, I mean, that's a whole different thing. Just getting your foot in the door is a big deal, and that's what they're looking for. I haven't said anything publicly, but I'm going to say it here with your kind indulgence. Travis knows, you two guys don't, because you don't know me. I wrote and produced and directed and edited a teen slasher film back in 2005 called Delirium. I was living in San Diego at the time. I shot it out in the desert near El Centro. I shot that movie because I worship at the altar of Roger Corman. Okay. I made a movie. Okay. Get this. You'll love this. I shot it in 9 days for $9,000.
Uh-huh.
$9,000. And I got an international DVD distribution deal. Now, they fucked me on the deal. I never saw a penny, and the company wound up going bankrupt and all that kind of shit. But here's the thing. Yeah, I had to file a bankruptcy too, and that was not a pleasant thing. However, I did it. I wrote, produced, directed, and edited a feature film. When people ask me about the film industry, where I studied, I tell them that I studied at the University of Delirium, because Delirium was the name of the movie. You know?
Nice.
It's so obscure now you can't find it, and it's probably a good thing. I watched it again here recently on a DVD that I have, and it's just terrible. It's cringeworthy, but it was my student film. You know, that's how I look at it. Now, when the 2008 financial meltdown happened, I was in pre-production on another film, and I had investors that had promised me money, right? But the money had not changed hands. We had contracts signed, but the money hadn't changed hands yet. But working in good faith, I had paid some things out of my own pocket to keep my schedule. And I was counting on that money to come in from these investors to, to reimburse me and to float me, right? Well, the crash happened, and guess what happened to that money?
Souffle.
Bye-bye. And it killed me financially, killed the company. I had to dissolve the company, and I finally got the movie made with someone else producing and directing, and it's too bad because they really fucked up my script. But that's okay. It happens. Then I got struck with cancer in 2014. I had a stage 4 cancer. And because of some of the long-term debilitating effects of the cancer and the chemo and the radiation that killed my cancer and saved my life, but I pay for it every day with pain and fatigue and everything because I got this trigeminal nerve thing on the side of my head. It's a big mess. But the fact is, I'm still alive. And I'm still writing.
Huh.
But it knocked me out of the box permanently to do anything in the filmmaking world because I do not have the physical stamina to work 12, 14, 16-hour days, 6 days a week for months on end to, complete a film. And that's, if you're going to direct, that is what it takes.
Yeah.
And you're making 1,000 decisions a day. They all have to be right because one decision made wrong can start off this cascade of events that leads to your movie being a piece of shit. And that may be a decision that you made about art directing way back in pre-production,
Yeah.
And because of the chemotherapy, I have short-term memory loss. I can tell you what I was doing 40 years ago. I can tell you where I was, who I was with, what we were doing. I can't tell you what I had for lunch yesterday. I have no clue. None. So because of those things, filmmaking went out the window. However, I have a short screenplay that I am planning to shoot sometime this year. It's one location. It's at a veterans memorial because I'm being a disabled vet. It's at a veterans memorial, and it's just two people who sit down and start talking to each other. One is a Marine Corps gunnery sergeant. The other is a Navy corpsman, which is what I was. I was a Navy corpsman who was Fleet Marine Force during his time in. And that's me. I was Fleet Marine Force. I was an FMF warfare specialist. I was one of those crazy motherfuckers that goes out there with the Marines. Anywhere they go, I go. Whatever they do, I do. If they kick in a door, I'm like fourth or fifth through the door. You know, that kind of shit. That's what I did for a living. And thank God I don't do it anymore. That's a job for young men. But no, these two guys start talking. And as the script goes along, and it's only 12 pages, but as the script goes along, again, that peeling the onion thing that I like to do, you find out in little dribbles what the true nature of the friendship between these men is. And it's not just that general brotherhood of, oh, you were over there in 06? Yeah, I was in Kandahar in 08. Let me buy you a beer. No, this is different. Their friendship is different from that. It's deeper and it's more profound. And the script is called The Spoils of War. And the little key art thing that I've created, the tagline is true friendship never dies. And that'll give you an idea of what one of them is. True friendship never dies, you know. And I'm hoping to shoot it sometime this year. I'm going to shoot it on my telephone.
Nice.
And I'm in a film group up here. I live in northwestern Washington, guys. I live in a small little place called Port Orchard on the Puget Sound. I'm right across from Seattle. Oh. And but I found the location. I can get it for $100 a day. The biggest line item really is going to be some special effects makeup, because at the end, the big reveal is that one of these two friends is dead. He's a ghost. And at a very key moment that I've written specifically to hit the audience in the gut fucking hard, this immaculately dressed Marine Corps gunnery sergeant in his dress uniform, his high and tight haircut, you know, this guy who's just been so easygoing because he says, I don't have a care in the world. I've got all the time in the world. Time means nothing to me now. You know, and he's been saying this all through the story. And then at the very end, Doc says something. Doc says, I'm sorry I couldn't save you. And when Gunny turns to look at it, he's no longer in this pristine uniform. He's in blood-stained and burned and charred battle fatigues, and the entire left side of his head, his face, everything is just fucking gone. It's just gone. And he starts talking about, look, there was nothing you could have done. The minute I stepped outside the Humvee, you know, I was gone when the RPG hit. There was nothing you could have done. And it goes on and then it runs to the end. But I know I can't direct a feature, and I don't really want to. I really don't. But this short has been with me for a long, long time, up here and in here. And I've got to get it out there. Now, whether it goes anywhere or whether I just post it to YouTube, I don't know yet. I'll have to evaluate the finished product. but yeah, I think a short film I can do because of what it is and the way I've written it. As long as my two actors come in prepared, I can shoot the thing in 2 days. You know, because like I said, it's all just two friends sitting on a bench talking. And I wrote it that way on purpose to make it cheap and to make it easy to do and still tell a story that has a gut punch impact on people, So we'll see what happens with it.
And I just want to add to that too. I feel like right now, society, especially in the U.S., we have such a short fucking attention span. I mean, with TikTok,
real quick,
shorts. Huh?
I'll be right back in 2 seconds. I'll be right back. 2 seconds.
Okay. I just feel like short films and like Chuck was saying earlier about novellas, people are more steering towards that, and so I mean that's why you're starting to see a lot more horror shorts and anthology series and novellas because people's attention span are fucking gone now, man.
Instant gratification. We have to adhere to their need for instant gratification.
Yeah. And that's a challenge for me because, I write novels. My novels are, 112, 115,000 words. I mean, Just Before Dawn was 124,000. The one I'm getting ready to put out in April, it's going to wind up being somewhere between 112 and 113,000 words. I mean, that's 300 and some odd pages,
And that's fine though. I think yes, people want the short, but we still have to adhere to our initial writing rules, right? Hook them early. Right, we get no matter if it's short or long. If the first 3 paragraphs ain't hitting, they ain't hitting. That's why I do I start in 2008 and then I work my way back. Chapter 2 is 1988, where we get to the point of where they were in 2008, and I get that full circle moment in the second part of it. It's if you got to grab them. I'd like to just build from the beginning, but that doesn't mean somebody's going to go, yeah, that's very interesting. Okay. Now this woman got killed in a parking lot, beaten to death. We don't know why. She's just, we know why. We were with her when she walked into the mall and she was a bitch to the salespeople and everything. And she was rude. And we know she's using her boyfriend's credit card. And she's just like, so proud of herself that she almost got the sales girl fired. She gets out, but then it's like, all right, well, what else? It's as compelling as I could make it for openers, and that's where that's the toughest thing. I remember seeing a course of this guy. He had free videos on Amazon Prime. His whole thing was how to make effective, good short stories. And he said, how you do this? You write your story in 3 sentences. And damn if it didn't work for me. It just simple things. A man takes a job as a mall Santa Claus. He's an ex-con, he realized sentence number 2. He's down on his luck. He realizes, find out something about these people and their address from the pictures, kidnap the kid, and ransom him. That's 3 sentences. And obviously, third sentence is the kid has to get rescued or die. And that's a 3-sentence story. So it's as easy and hard as it is, as it sounds, to get it going. And my problem with short stories is they start off, but man, it's tough to end those suckers, and then you'll bring it to the writing groups and they'll say, well, Jason, this was something else. What, you want to expand on it? Not really, but that's what I would say. I mean, I'm 46, but I won't be able to tell every story. I've got a few things drafted about in my lifetime, but I'd like to touch on something Mark said, and this relates to you as well, Chuck. A friend of mine asked me, he's like, my book's been out, both my books have been out a year. And he asked me, he's like, when are you going to have to keep doing these shows and everything and going to this stuff? And I said, oh, it goes on, baby. It goes on. And I saw this brilliant woman on marketing. She was on like New York Times or something, Sage someone. And she said, that's the worst thing that writers do is give up on the book and just start working on another book. You could work on another book, but your book is like your kid. Your book is only 1 year old. That book is with you. And King said this on writing as well, Chuck. What did it cost you to try to make some great fiction, right? When you're done and you write those words at the end, even if you don't send it to publish, which we write it to be read, it's the greatest feeling to complete, right? And then to get it into print, and then to go from there. It's I mean, he says in the On Writing book, at the bare minimum, you have written a novel, and there are millions upon millions of people who have lived and died and never been able to do this. Yeah. It's compelling. It really is.
A lot of people say they want to write a book, and it's like, we'll do it, and they never do it.
The art is in the doing of it. The art is in the doing.
It's the grind, man. It's the grind. If you don't have the grind,
absolutely. We are in rare company, gentlemen, because we do something that very, very, very few people on this planet can do. And we're doing it at a professional level. And that's even more rarefied. There's all kinds of writers out there who can never quite make that last hurdle, and nothing against them. I mean, it's like me, I grew up in the 60s and 70s wanting to be the next Jimmy Page or the next Peter Frampton. I wanted to be a guitar rock god.
How do you feel?
That's it. But see, there was just one little thing standing in my way of superstardom.
Yeah.
I lacked the innate talent. I could practice guitar. I still play. I play badly. I sing along even worse. Believe me, you never, ever want to hear me sing. Okay. But, I just plink around with it because it feeds my soul. I like it, But when it's time to go to work, when it's time to be professional, I can't record music. I can't write and record music and make a living at it. I sit down and I write. That's where my strength is. And
I'm sure you know what this is, Mark. That's Sid Field.
Yes, sir.
And
yes, sir.
Just to hit on what Chuck says before I forget, multiple times in this wonderful book, he says, many people come up to me, like you said, Chuck, I want to write a book. They come up to Sid Field, they say, I have a movie. A guy does this and this happens. You do not have a movie. You have an idea that you can make into a movie. True. And knowing that you followed through to completion, it's a journey. And then when you get to the point where I didn't want to be a marketing person and have to market and sell my own things, but that comes with it. I didn't honestly. The moderator of my writing group was in his 70s. He's my first editor, and he said to me, Jason, you got to make a Facebook. You got to go on Instagram. I said, I don't want to do none of that. He says, it's the digital age. It's the age of convenience. He said, you need to use this to your advantage. And, while I love doing something like Travis's show here and talking with people, I came to realize that I did enjoy the engagement with people and people giving you what they thought. Like the guy that you said, Mark, when he took your work and he made it and he got it where you were coming from on it. Oh, that's the most incredible feeling. The third editor that I hired, I don't know this man from Adam, but when his description, he described my book better than I could describe it. And I was like, yes, that's it. But, to get to the completion is, I think sometimes people are really hard on themselves. I let it happen to myself. It's like, why didn't I have more people emailed for pre-sales before the book came out? Why didn't I do this? Like, I worked 2 jobs to get the money together. Just, you did as much as you could when you could. And if you know that, you shouldn't be hard on yourself for it. But creation's it's a motherfucker sometimes.
I'd like to comment on a couple of things actually. Because of my brutal beer piss that I had to go for. I don't know what the question was, but when I came back, Jason, you were talking about short stories being kind of a pain in the ass. Like, where do they end, right? So my last book that I've discussed multiple times tonight, Law Lizard Stew, was supposed to be a novella. It wasn't supposed to be a long one, and it's almost 400 pages. I'm not like I can do short stories, but I think more on short stories than I do my big books, because I think that there's more that goes into, all right, what can you do in a short period of time? You know what I mean? Like I'm working on a sequel right now to my book Going to Hell, Fresh Kills, and I just got finished writing a story called Fecal Matters, that it takes place in a restroom, a rest area, where bad shit, really fucked up shit happens. That's what the whole story is about.
That's about the ass eating, then, right?
It's about what?
The ass eating. Is that where the ass eating comes into play?
Well, I mean, maybe Freud's a little right. There is.
I'm sorry.
There's some funky shit that goes on, but it takes more time for me to think of. Okay, I'm doing a short story for an anthology. I'm needing to do a short story for a collection, whatever the fuck. It takes more time out of me, and my mind has to be completely with it. Because when I do something, I'm like, okay, I don't know if this is going to be a novella, if this is going to be a short story, if this is going to be a novel. I sit down and just write. But if I know for a fact it has to be a short story, it's difficult. It really is, because sometimes. Ralph James White said this before, that it's like, and I'm sure other people have too, but he's the most recent one that comes to mind. That story is as long as that story needs to be, no matter if it's 20 pages, 60 pages, or 150 pages, or 400 pages. If the story is not finished, then nobody cares. There's no point in it. It's difficult though. It really is. When you're really into it, man, when you're really going, it's a tricky bastard. The second thing I wanted to comment on, what was the last thing you were talking about, Jason?
I was just saying that with regard to the short stories, I mean, my rule of thumb is I don't use more than 5 characters. Like Mark said about his 2-character story, how that works for him. Especially in the short story, I can't go expand and having all these people all over the place.
Right.
So that helps me get to the point of completion for those.
My issue, I'll say it actually, because you were talking about starting a book and then not finishing it or whatever. I've been working on a novel for the past like 2 months, 2 or 3 months, and I have recently had to shelve it. because I have 1,000 different things going on at once. Eventually, I do plan on putting it out because it's an interesting thing. But man, that's kind of the the fun of it, is trying to figure out, like, characters pop up left and right for me. Then I'm like, oh, who are you? I guess you're here now. Now we got to figure out where you're going. All right, and a lot of people say that my stuff is written like reading a movie, because each chapter is a new scene, and with this new one, with this most recent one that I will get to, it will be done. I overloaded myself so bad, and overwhelmed myself so bad, because there's a shit ton of characters. There's a shit ton of twists. And because I was trying, I wanted to write my Silence of the Lambs. Okay. And that was my first mistake. Like I fucked up. And I'm gonna have to go back, and because like there's loopholes and whatever the fuck. It's not easy. When you have a basic idea in your head, and you sit down and you start writing it, and you're like, oh, this is good. This is really good. Oh, people are going to love this. Oh, this twist right here, this is going to be some good shit. And then you realize you have 50 twists, and you're like, I'm going to have to kill some darlings. I'm going to have to execute. Yeah. And that's what I'm going to have to do with it. It sucks. But you sometimes you have to, when you get overwhelmed with a book, even though you're like, man, I love this, I love what I'm doing, there are those times where you have to take a stand back and go, hey, you're stressing way too fucking much. There's other stories that need to be written, there's other things that need to be done. Just put it off, not on the back burner, like kind of on the edge of the burner. That way it's right there in your face. You know what I mean? Like, it's right there. You're like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this and that. And then here's this right here. And eventually I'm going to get to it, and it's going to be awesome. But you can, it's real easy to overload.
I can't help but say the example that you used said everything, Chuck. Let's look at Thomas Harris, the author of Silence of the Lambs. I think I could count on this hand how many books Mr. Harris was able to complete.
4 or 5.
He is quoted as saying he was in some kind of financial situation. And the guy said, a friend says, why don't you just write another fucking book, And he looked at that man and said, I would rather go out into that yard right now and dig an 8-foot ditch than have to write another book. And King hits on this where he says, these people that wrote these singular or 2 great books, what are they doing in the spare time? Knitting church baskets? Thomas Harris, I think the reasons the Silence of the Lambs and the Hannibal is so successful is that dude kicked his own ass so bad telling those stories. If you look at the character of Mason Varger, I subscribe to a wonderful YouTube channel called The Vile Eye, where he psychoanalyzes evil and characters. The character of Mason Varger that had this infinite resources and did these horrible things to kids, how couldn't it take a lot out of you being in that character? So when you say you went, how ambitious, that's great that you started to try to do a Silence of the Lambs, but it was even hard for the guy who did it.
Yeah. No, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Thomas Harris is we've got a comment here.
Comment from Paul Oreo. Writing is a venture, whether it's a book or screenplay. You start off with your first words, and you're in it for the marathon, not the 40-yard dash. I started my book last year, and it's almost. Oh, there's a part 2 to it. Ready for publishing now. It takes time and effort, and you can't quit on yourself or your story that you're helping to create.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what I was gonna, that's what I was going to comment on. That's what I was forgetting about. Being a creator, it's a blessing and a curse, because we have a thousand different ideas that we want to get out, and there's a new one every day. There's a new idea that pops in our heads every single fucking day, and we can't help it. It's just there.
It's just how our minds work. It's how our minds work.
Yeah, exactly. I'm also a musician. I do have a band, at Bastard Sons of a Judas Goat. There you go. And
you're better than me.
All right.
What's the name again? Bastard Sons of what?
Bastard Sons of a Judas Goat. We're a two-piece.
Okay.
I play drums and do vocals, and it's I overload myself almost on purpose, just for the record, because I have to always be grinding. If I'm not doing something, I feel like the biggest piece of shit in the world. But the thing is, when you're a creative and you have an idea, no matter if it's music, a story, movies, whatever the fuck, there's always that second guessing. There's always that self. This is where the cons come in, because the pro is, oh, this is a great idea. We're gonna get this out. This is gonna be awesome. Yeah, you're building yourself up. It's gonna be great. And then you get to a point where you're like, is it that good? Is it? And like everybody's going, it's good. It's good stuff. You got good stuff here. And you're going, but is it really that good? And you question yourself. If you're not a true creative, you don't question yourself at all. That's the thing. If you think that everything that you fucking do is gold, then you've got a fucking problem. You're probably a fucking douchebag, and you probably think you're better than you are. That's true. Because like everything that I write, no matter how proud I am of it, no matter like the music that me and my band like play, like no matter how proud of it, we're very, very like critical. You have to be sometimes, but that's where the curse comes in, is because like even though deep down you have a good idea, you have something there that people will slurp up and just indulge. In the back of your head, you're going, but is it worth the shit? And that's being a creative. It's just the everyday ideas that come into your head, and you go, I can't wait to write this. I can't wait to do this. And then when you finally do it, you have a midway, depending on, it's like you write a book, write a story you've been working on forever or whatever the fuck. Like here, okay, good example. Here recently, I was asked to do a pretty cool anthology thing with two other authors that is supposed to be quiet horror, which means not extreme, not hardcore, something simple, something whatever. But the subject matter is romance. It's love that's gone awry in some way. I still have not finished the story because I've started 6 fucking times. It was supposed to be out by Valentine's Day, and that's probably not going to happen. Because even though you sit down, I've written pretty much like half of a fucking story, and I go, this isn't going to work. This is not what. This isn't what I wanted. This isn't, you're critical of your stuff,
But that's when you have to be most resilient and power through that shitty first draft. Because I have people in the writing groups, they have wonderful ideas and wonderful stories, and I'm like, just stop, like you said, doing the screenplay. You had to stop and think about the setting and the scene and everything, Chuck. When you did the screenplay, you kept stopping. Me, if I stop, I'm dead. I'm dead. I don't get up, just like you here. I don't get out of this chair when I get going until nature must be taking its course. Or my cat's like, we've been sitting here 4 hours here. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard. And you get to that point where like, all right, where am I going with this now that I gotta just finish the damn thing. Even if it sucks, I have to try to finish it. And that's been, I never knew that. I had to learn that. I've started lots of shit I haven't finished. Lots, and just been like, I don't think this is it. But look how long. I might as well finish those. But what can you do? But you know, there's always doubt. I mean, you're like you said, you'd be a crazy person to think everything's so good. But you know, but you believe in what you finish, though, right? And that's what's important.
Oh, completely. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, you've got imposter syndrome. We all do. You know, we all
part of the curse.
Do the best we can. Yeah, it's part of the curse. It's the blessing and the curse. And I just said that to one of my lifelong friends here earlier this week. He said that I was gifted, and I said it's a gift and it's a curse. And he had no idea what I was saying. He could not understand that having this thing that I have is not all sunshine and roses. Because I'm much like you guys. We've all heard of method actors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I identify I identify as a method writer. I have to feel what my characters feel. I have to believe what they believe. Otherwise, I cannot write with any authenticity or any honesty. And the tiniest whiff of bullshit, and I lose my audience just like that. You know why? Horror readers are smart, they're educated, they're articulate, and they are tuned in. And if you try to just shovel shit to them to make a quick buck, they will turn on you faster than an East Texas rattlesnake. And I say that because I'm from East Texas.
Nope.
I figured.
You know what? Everyone who meets me up here, after I've talked to them for like 2 minutes, they go, "You're not from around here, are you?" Almost 50 years gone from Texas, and I still speak like a Texan. What can I say? But yeah, I'm a method writer, and I have those highs and lows with my own emotions. I have sat, and I'm supposed to be a tough guy, right? I have sat at my computer, not able to see the screen because I'm crying so hard.
Been there.
You know? I've had to stop, get up, and walk around the house to process what I'm feeling and to process what do I do next. And I'm waiting for my characters. God, I sound like a crazy guy. I'm waiting for my characters to come in and tell me the story. That's what I'm looking for.
Yep.
Because if I can get in the groove and I live for those days, it's almost like sex with your clothes on. It's wonderful when you're banging on all cylinders, and the characters are telling you what to write.
Yep.
And all I have to do is try to keep up with them. If I can do that, I can get my 2,000 words a day, because that's what I'm shooting for when I'm writing that draft. I'm trying to get 2,000 words a day. That way I can have a first draft done with 160, 180,000 words. I can have that done in about 4 months. And that's what I shoot for. And then I whittle down to about like we were talking earlier, about somewhere between 112 and 115,000 words. That's kind of my sweet spot. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but yeah, when it's firing on all cylinders, that 4 to 6 hours, because I can't go longer than that. It's emotionally draining for me.
You have to take a break.
Yeah. 4 to 6 hours in a day. That's all I have. I'm done after that. You know, it's time to go. It's time to go pour myself a glass of Oban. You know, it's that time.
We
Yeah.
actually were just mentioning that early on, where Chuck, we were saying how he says in the on writing, there's a muse, but the muse ain't gonna show up until you start putting the legwork in. And sex with I might have to relay that to other people in writing groups and other authors. The sex with your clothes on point is the point you want to get to with the writing. You know,
That's the sweet spot. Yeah.
you know, I think about like just these, and it's wonderful to hear you guys talk about these specific writing scenarios and your own thing, because family and friends, they're wonderful, they're supportive, but unless they're doing it, they don't know what's going on with you, because you'd be a lunatic if you told them everything that's going on. But I think about, I had a friend, like you were saying, Chuck, with the romance story that you were supposed to work on, which was the quiet horror, which was a genre I didn't know about that one either. But he wanted me to write a comedy, okay, along the lines of something like Cannonball Run or Mel Brooks's It's a Mad, Mad World. Ghostwrite a comedy. I said, okay. And he said, the central idea is I have all these guys who are real comedians. They're going to act in it. I already have it cast. I need you to write it for me. So I said, sure, I can write it. You know, I start to write it. And I feel like I have been, and it's going good. Everything's cool. There's funny parts. I got the stoner team, you know, the money's missing from this guy that robbed the bank. And I'm going along. And I look, and then I think about Mr. Field, what he says. Your script should be no longer than 2 hours, 120 pages. That's the maximum. Unless your names are Spielberg or Scorsese, you're no exception to this rule. The Human Bladder with Hitchcock, it shouldn't be longer than that. I'm looking, I'm already on like page fucking 70, and I haven't even gotten to the middle plot. I just left the lawyer's office with the Brewster's Millions scenario. You have to do this and you could get this money. The guy died. He's on the thing. I was beyond stressed. I went out, like you said, I walked around a little, and I'm like, because I can't go back. Like I said, I got to see it through and finish that draft. So what the fuck am I supposed to do here? I look at the cat. I go on Amazon Prime. I rent Mel Brooks' It's a Mad, Mad World. That is almost a 3-hour movie. It's
a great movie, though.
Yeah, yes, it is. It was, and it was just what I needed, because I went back, and in the screenwriter's workbook, Paul Schrader, writer of Taxi Driver, says usually for him around page 60, something starts to happen. Some things start to lock into place, and I did a flash forward that locked it all in place and made it all work out. But I needed that breakaway from that moment. I needed to just. And seeing that the movie's runtime was that long was a big difference for me. And a lot of the updated version of this is finding that middle plot of the story. And he talks about Sam Peckinpah, great director. And he says, how do you go about getting to that sweet spot of your story? And Sam Peckinpah tells him, I think of it like a mantle. And along the mantle, you have all these things, but then you have like that centerpiece that's right above the fireplace. And that's the sweet spot of the film or story that I like to get to. But these things, it's just through experience that you get through them. And you know, like your romance story, like I have no doubt that you could do this story, but there was a deadline. It's something that's not really your thing, but you know, it's going to be arduous at times, but the succeeding of it, the sex with the clothes, I love that. That's Field's middle plot, getting to the point in novel writing where your characters, when
your clothes are soaked, that's when you've done a good job.
It's much better than the muse is shining up his bowling trophies and everything. That is something else. Thank you for that. I think someone asked earlier in the comment, what was the Mark Allen film, X Horror Short Films? Did you name the film that you were talking about, Mark? That was, yeah. There. Thank you, Travis.
Well, the short film, I haven't made it yet. I have the script. It's called Spoils of War.
It's a good title.
Spoils of War. Well, it's a tip of the hat to what I used to do for a living, and it's a tip of the hat to my brothers who, as bad as I had it, have had it a hell of a lot worse than me.
Right.
And this is me trying to give back to that community and saying, hey, I still see you, you know?
That's
I can
incredible.
dig that. I do. I have a question though,
Sure.
for you all. So my rituals, whenever I'm getting ready to write, I will. For the record, I'm also considered the stoner gore king. I'll pack a bowl if I have it, smoke a joint, whatever. I'll watch an interview with Jack Ketchum or Stephen King or Edward Lee or something to get me kind of in the mode. And once I'm done blazing and I've had a couple of shots, whatever the fuck, I put on some crazy ambience or soundtracks. Lately, I've been listening to the Prince of Darkness, John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness score. Great. The It Follows score is good. Been listening to a lot of that
movie.
shit. Yeah, very underrated actually. A lot of people hate it, but I don't give a fuck. So I was curious. I was curious what, and I also I do the whole walking around the room, kind of getting you know, Matthew McConaughey and Texas Chainsaw 4, you know, like so I'm curious of other writers' rituals and what they go on. What do you all have any rituals of that nature? Like, I mean, or you just sit down and write, or do you take something in before that? Is there a certain song? Is there a certain, you know, what gets you in that mode?
You want to go first, Jason, or you want me to talk first?
I think this is an awesome question. In my case, with the writing, I can't write a poem for shit, but I could write a rhyme. I always try to write a short rhyme. It could be something as simple as the leaves blowing around outside. A short rhyme, something I begin and ends within that day. So even if it's a shitty day of writing, I have completed something. And I could go back to like, you did this that day. As far as music, though, oh, baby. For Time the Avenger, which is a straight out just revenge story along the lines of Cape Fear, like that, I went with Glenn Danzig. One of the only instrumental things he did. It's called Black Aria.
Yeah, it is. I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Oh, that's a beauty. But as far as like I had to play I do like act and stuff. I had to play a theater production. I was the Nazi guy in Sound of Music, Herr Zeller. So I'm like Star Wars Imperial March, you know, anything that would get those drums going and everything. I'm a big Raider fan, so the Autumn Wind. I like to put music to every project. Like Martin Scorsese says, sometimes he thinks the music before he actually does it. Like when Nicholas Pileggi, the author of Wise Guy, which becomes Goodfellas, they're going through what you talked about, Mark, the subtext, so important. When we see that scene when Jimmy knows he's going to whack Maury, Scorsese goes, cream down now. Pileggi don't know what in the hell he's talking about. He's like, fine, cream. And then we get the sub. Yeah.
Greatest three-piece of all time, just for the record. Ginger Baker was an asshole, but one of the greatest drummers. Go on.
Yeah. Yes. So that's the long and short of it for me. I like to make, if I can, assign a playlist to a story. And that really helps. And also, this is different, but I'd like to know what you guys feel about like research and how much that takes out of your writing. Like I spent a whole day watching classic Army films about blasting caps because I didn't want no bullshit. Like Mark said, I can't lie to myself. How am I going to lie to the reader? You know? So I had to see authentic what goes into an actual explosive, the milling of the black powder. Research takes a lot for me, but the music part I enjoy. I love making my own mental score to that story.
The fact that you just mentioned Black Aria, dude, you just that's fucking cool
Paradise Lost come to life right in your in your office.
Baltimore Oreo fan, immerse myself in the theme from The Shining for 15 minutes and chug a coffee. Go crazy.
Fuck yeah. I got you on that.
Yep.
That's a good one.
My ritual when I'm working, I'm up by 6:30, feed the cat, get the coffee going. I go through my emails, see if there's anything I need to respond to right away. Take my morning meds, and then I'm working out. I do my workout. I get done, grab a quick shower. I am sitting down to write. I'm opening up Word and everything, and I'm bringing the draft up. I'm sitting down to write by 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. I am going to work steady until at least 1400, 2 o'clock. At least that. If I'm somewhere near that 2,000 words, if I'm at least 1,500 or more, that's a good day. 1,400, I'll stop. If not, I'll go to 1,500, 3 o'clock, because I'm going to get the day, no matter what it takes me to do that.
You're in the grind.
Yeah. And then because, hey, this is a job. You know, we are not hobbyists. And nothing against the people that write for a hobby and simply as a creative outlet and a way to fill their soul. I love them. But we've taken it to a different level where we're approaching this as a job. And jobs, some days are good days, some days are bad days. This is a job like anything else. And so I will do what I have to do to complete my mission for that day. And that day is aspirationally 2,000 words, fundamentally and practically at least 1,500. If I don't get 1,500, I'm pissed at myself for not getting there. Because it's that military mindset. I either get there or I don't. I either succeed or I have failed. There's no in between. Now, maybe I'm putting too much pressure on myself, but again, you do 21 years in the military where you're told anything less than absolute total perfection is failure. After a while, that starts to seep into every aspect of your life. And I've been retired longer than I was on active duty, but a lot of those habits and thought patterns and even behavior patterns, they're ingrained in my DNA. I'm going to be the way I am. I'm going to be this way the rest of my life. As far as music goes, yes, discipline. Everything is about discipline. The success is derived from discipline. Stephen King has a quote. We've been quoting him a lot today.
Of course, he's the king.
But yeah, well, he has a quote about, some writers wait for inspiration. The rest of us get up and go to work.
Yep.
Yep. Musically, you're talking about music. I listen to music for two reasons. One, it drowns out my tinnitus. The other thing is that it helps me set a mood with myself that I believe translates to the mood of the scene that I'm writing. I have a series of vampire novels, and I love my vampire. He's a cool guy, resourceful guy, and he's actually the dark hero. He's an anti-hero, is what he is. But I'd listen to a lot of Rolling Stones, especially Sympathy for the Devil.
Of course, yeah.
Because that's kind of how I see this guy. Because I approached the vampire genre or subgenre in what I felt was a fundamentally different approach. Instead of him just being a cardboard caricature and a representation of evil, or the broken-hearted, long-suffering, miserable vampire who pines for his lost humanity. And then, of course, there's the whole various incarnations of the Romeo and Juliet thing, the forbidden love. Okay, I love some of those books, I love some of those movies, but it's not what I wanted to do. And so I started with a guy who's been a vampire for about 110 years. And he's okay with it. Yeah, this is what I do. This is the hand I've been dealt. This is what I've got on my plate. I'm just going to try to make the best of it, And oh yeah, I'm gonna watch from afar and try to make sure that my descendants are okay. I'm not going to interfere with their lives. I'm just going to be there to maybe influence certain situations to their benefit, and then pull back, and that's that. So a lot of Rolling Stones, a lot of sympathy for the devil, except I'm a huge Led Zeppelin guy, so I'm always listening to Zeppelin. But when I had to get down and get funky with my extreme violence, some people say I write extreme violence. I say no, I write medically accurate horror. Because if
like Human Centipede?
That's not medically accurate. I saw the first movie. Yeah, well,
which did he say?
He asked about the Human Centipede.
I said Human Centipede because that's
that tagline was medically accurate. That's what they build that as.
Well,
that was the premise.
What I'm talking about is, if someone's going to get slashed with a claw from here all the way across.
Carotid artery.
Well, I'm going to be thinking, okay, what are the blood vessels underneath there? What are the tissues underneath there? Are there organs involved? Does this puncture a lung? Does this nick the inferior vena cava, which runs under here, or the superior vena cava, which comes up here, and they both dump into the heart? Or if it's something abdominal, okay, is this going to nick the abdominal aorta? Is this going to hit a kidney? Is it going to hit the liver? Is it going to hit the phrenic artery? I ask myself these questions, and then once I figure out what that would be, and of course what it wouldn't be, then I just write the truth. I just write accurately. Makes it easy, but I listen if I need to do real hardcore violence, which some of my stuff is. I listen to Guns N' Roses, man.
Sped up.
I listen to Guns N' Roses. There is just something about their music.
Which album?
Well, I've downloaded like their greatest hits.
Okay.
So I'm just hitting a lot of the highlights of their library.
Yeah.
But there's something about the riff to Welcome to the Jungle. Now, I'm not saying that their music advocates violence. I'm not saying that.
Some of it does.
But their music has a violent feel.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's very
primalness to it. It's why it's so, it is. But what you're saying about being accurate and everything, in the interview with Travis, what made it so much fun is when we started talking. You remember, Travis?
Yes.
I started telling him to get the money to get professional editing and everything. I worked nights as a cremator. I spent time around so many dead animals, just and knowing what the dead weight feels like on your shoulders. And Travis in his field, I can't wait for the show, Travis.
Yes, it's coming. It's coming next month.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that metallic smell of blood, or
I've broken my nose multiple times. I can't smell anything. That's why it was an asset to me in that job. But when things
Cologne
smell
under the nose.
when they smell bad enough, they're in your stomach, man. They're in your stomach. That's how
Yes.
bad it is.
The smell of death, especially once decomposition starts sitting in,
Yeah.
it is a sour, sweet smell that just absorbs you. I mean,
There's no smell like it.
There's no smell like it. But it's not the smell of death. It's that decomposing death. You know what I mean? It's someone who's been, their body is starting to break down. That smell, it sticks with you.
I still remember, I will never forget the smell of human bodies that had been left out in the sun in the desert and had been baking for about 4 or 5 days. You know, I'll never forget the smell of charred human flesh, of what a body smells like when it has been consumed by an incendiary grenade. Because these things are made with phosphorus, so they burn at like 7,000 degrees or something like that. So it just incinerates everything. And there are certain smells I will never forget. There are certain smells that trigger me. Some of the things that trigger me the most, that start sending me back to that place. I can't walk into a Middle Eastern grocery store because of the smell of the meat and the smell of the spices. It just immediately, the minute I walk in, I'm back. Now suddenly I'm in combat mode again, and I'm watching everybody looking for where the attack is going to come from. Now, of course, we're here in the United States. I'm not going to get attacked. Not like that, right? But I'm there, and I'm watching every set of eyes. I'm looking where the hands are. I'm looking for bulges underneath the clothing. You know, suddenly I'm looking for all of that. You know,
You're back.
and so, yeah, I'm back in the shit.
Yeah.
And so I can't go in there. The smell of the goat and the lamb, combined with the fresh spices that are unique to Middle Eastern culture that they use for their food. And nothing against them. I don't have a problem with them. But just certain smells like that, I have to leave the store. I've got to get out of there. I can't be in there. Feels like I'm suffocating.
Does it work the other way around for your olfactory senses? You just talking about that. Can memory give you a scent? Everything you were just talking about. Did you have the scent?
I was remembering a time in San Diego when I walked into a Middle Eastern grocery store that had opened up in my neighborhood. And I remember that. I remember that very clearly. As far as remembering a smell, to a degree, but it's not like I'm smelling it again. Not like when I'm walking into that environment and having it all around me and engulfing me. No. But yeah, it's a strange thing what we do. I tell people, people ask me if I'm in therapy because I've been diagnosed with PTSD and all this stuff. And I tell them, yeah, I'm in therapy for about 4 or 5 hours every day.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh my God, Mark! Oh, you poor man. Who's your doctor?" I said, "I'm a writer.
Yeah.
This is where This is where I exercise my demons.
Mhm.
You want to know who Mark Allen is? You want to know what's important to him in life? You want to know how he feels about life and death, everything in between, even what might be beyond? Read my books. It's all in there. You know, I once heard Stephen Fry say that reading a book, you learn as much about the person who wrote the story as the story itself. And I had never thought of it in those terms, but I think, at least in my case, he's absolutely right. I don't try to hide uh, that stuff. I try to use it to write compelling stories that people will want to read. And if I can entertain them, even if it's just for a few days while they read the book, if I can entertain them, if that's all it does is entertain them, then I've done my job. If they get the subtext of what I'm talking about and it gives them pause to think, then I just won the Oscar. You know what I mean? I've hit that pinnacle that many writers strive for, but very few really hit. And that's where you're truly communicating thoughts and feelings and beliefs to another human being. And for me as an artist, speaking only for myself, that's why I do it. I mean, getting shit off my chest is wonderful. The money's great, and I've won a few awards, and I've gotten glowing reviews and accolades, blah blah blah, and that's all well and good. But it's for me, it's about communicating with other people. You know, that's it. It's about communicating with other people. Everything else is just icing on the cake.
I do want to comment on something that Jason asked about research. That is a really good question. Because there's a whole thing of you write what you know and all that shit. And it's like, if I haven't been to a certain place, I'm not going to write about it. If I don't feel comfortable, some people can spend hours doing research before they start writing or whatever, because of this, whatever, and more power to you. I mean, that's cool. For me, if it's something, if I'm writing about a place I've been to, or a culture that I know, or whatever the fuck, it's easier. I do research when it comes down to biology. Certain kill scenes, certain sex scenes. I look up diagrams and things like that to make sure that I don't look like an idiot. I look. When it comes down to body parts and shit like that, I think that's one of the most important things to research on in certain aspects of things. I know where the little man in the boat is, okay, but there are certain aspects of female anatomy and us males. I've learned a lot about a few things when it comes down to my own body, when it comes down to writing certain shit. My story, Dickworm, and Dickworm Lives, that's in Sludge and Sludge 2 with Stuart Bray and Jason Nicky. You have to be knowledgeable in some way on what you're writing, and you can tell. You can pick up when somebody's never been to a certain place, never dealt with certain types of people, never been in a certain situation, and it kind of makes the writer kind of look like a liar in a way. I think research is a good thing, completely, 100%. You know, if you've never been to fucking Iran and you want to write a book that has to do with that, then do all the fucking research you fucking can in the world to make sure you sound somewhat authentic. Because you can tell when somebody's never been to New York. You can tell when somebody's never been to Italy. You can tell. There's just there's just a lot of shit. Research is important, but it's easier when you already know what you're writing. You know, so that's my answer.
I agree.
I have stood with my attic door hinged open and the measuring tape to the roof as high as I could go up, trying to figure out, does the fall from here kill them? And then
There you go. Yeah.
What the highest children's play set was on a schoolyard. It's important because if you're bullshitting them, you're bullshitting yourself. And you're right, Chuck. It will come through.
Readers know.
We have in New Jersey, we have a very, very well accomplished author, and they've written many books and everything. And one of them is from where I lived in Trenton, and there was just one thing in there, man, that was in the first book, and I seen it. I was like, somebody's fucking eating pork roast for Sunday Italian dinner in Chambersburg. I fucking lived there all my life. I couldn't read it no more, but I knew you're bullshitting me. You know,
right?
And I couldn't go through with it because I know you're bullshitting me. And I think Mark or Travis said earlier, horror fans are the best at that, man. Oh, horror fans, they'll sniff out some bullshit fast. If you try to get cute or glib with some jokey joke bullshit, I don't like comedy in my horror. Like to a certain extent of levity, fine for levity. Just
I feel called out now.
What? Like I said,
I have some comedy and some horror, but yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, it's like if it's done well, great, absolutely. If it's done the way, but if you're just trying to pass this off as like, and then this is funny, it's like whoa, wait, no, what the fuck happened there? Mm-hmm. Circumstance dictates reality, and sometimes those are the best moments in some stories. Look at Aliens. How funny is Bill Paxton in that? Nuke the site from orbit, man. I mean, we are tense as fuck there, so we have to laugh. We're not laughing at him though. We're laughing. We're laughing
with
at
him.
With him.
Comedy and horror have always kind of been. If you go back and watch, any '80s like horror film, you know what I mean? Like, there's always some element of comedy, and comedy and horror work together because. One of the funniest stories I wrote is in Sludge 2, and it's called Up in Hell. And it's all about basically a pot demon. And she puts these guys through all kinds of shit. And it has a scene in it, and it's been the only scene that I've ever written that's ever gave me the EBGBs. It's one of those sitting in the dark, and everything's silent, and then all of a sudden, like, a light flickers and there's someone next to you, that kind of thing. The comedy works because you have the funny, you have the oh, this is ridiculous, blah blah blah, and then it gets into there's those moments where you're like, well, this isn't funny anymore, to break up the monotony.
That's the setup. I get you.
Mm-hmm.
I get you with that. Where it's this is funny, and then that went from being serious to funny for serious very fast, and that's fun too because you catch the audience off guard with that. Mm-hmm. It's like a boxing counter punch. Comedy, pow, cross. So I again, and what did we say earlier? There's an audience for that. We have these subgenres now in horror.
Yes.
People want. That's just my personal preference. I mean, with horror and gangster films and stories, my expectations are through the roof because we've all seen so much of it. We know it. We know, like, is this good or is this like, is it a cash grab? Because that happens a lot, unfortunately, with horror, and that's why people love the indie stuff. I mean, they get us back in the theater for a remake of of Texas Chainsaw, not the good remake. That was a damn good one. But you know, when you come with another one, you know, we're going in.
You're talking about Netflix, aren't you? You're talking about Netflix.
Not as bad as I thought that one.
I liked it. I got Leatherface on my arm.
The one that came out, it was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D. I saw that in the theaters years ago. That one was horrible. I think that was the worst one in the series. That
Dude,
was
I love
definitely
that
a
movie
cash
so
grab.
much. It's stupid.
That was a cash grab.
Like, that movie doesn't make any goddamn sense, but it's so much fun. It's so much fun. None of it makes any goddamn sense, but I love that movie, and I probably shouldn't. I'll just go.
That was definitely a cash grab. Yes.
Oh yeah, completely.
I mean, but look at Child's Play. On paper, it's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, Child's Play, it must be good to a certain degree. It has endured and had spin-offs, Chucky's Bride. People still want to see Chucky. They still want to see the Leprechaun. So there's always that audience for that. My personal preference is, you know, Mark, you talked about being able to write a vampire. And again, with King's example is he starts in a place of reality and finds the unreality there.
Yes, very much so.
I
do the same thing. I start in reality so that the horror element really jumps out at you.
The reality gets so terrifying for me. I'm not at a point where I could get to anything supernatural or anything. I'm just thus far, I'm just steeped in actual stories. I want to, you know, I want to write a good guy. I so want to write a good guy in one of my stories, and I'm working on one for my next. I'm about 10 chapters into it. It's called A Problem with Everybody, and it's inspired by one of the only female serial killers in the modern age. Her name's Joanne Denny from the United Kingdom. And I like this. You're familiar. I like this story because it wasn't the same old came from a broken home. This is bad. It was. And my girlfriend is a true crime junkie. We frequently have this conversation. Are people born bad and evil, or do they become that way? And it's so hard to you know, you have to go individually. This is someone who just, I think for the evil's sake was just evil, who said, any bastard I see outside walking a dog, I'm going to stab him today. So that's but I do have, because I think it's so cliche to go, oh, I wrote this story and there's a detective and they're the good guy. How many detectives do you really know? I mean, and this is the research. I subscribe to a guy called
a couple and they're dicks.
So Officer 401's the guy's name. And he starts as a patrolman, and initially his department doesn't want him being transparent and making videos about policing, but then they wanted more interface with the public, and the guy eventually makes detective. And I can see that, and I'm like, all right, he's like, a lot of it's paperwork. You know, I'm not running around climbing off fire escapes and everything there. So with him and, you know, some intuitive, I was able to write this second generation Italian immigrant detective. And he comes from a place of humor for me. When my friends, before cell phones and everything, when we'd be all at the same bar and everything, and you wanted to fuck with your buddy who thinks he's got a warrant or something, you call the bar. They'd like, look, man. They're like, Detective Salvatore from Trenton Police called you, man. You got to call this number back. And it would put the zap on somebody who didn't know that the Detective Salvatore is a gaff, you know. They just knew they got in a fight the night before, so they're like, oh shit. They're like, oh, I think they need a call from Detective Salvatore. So I made Detective Salvatore a real guy, and he don't feel like bullshit to me. So I want to write supernatural, and I want to write some good characters, you know. I mean, my character in Time the Avenger, he is a victim of circumstance, man. And the research can be fun because I start the story in the late 1980s. And you know how cool it was to approach things as work, like your disciplined schedule, Mark, and go back to 1988, immersed completely. I am watching Donahue on YouTube and my split screen. I am listening to the music of that time. I have a flashback that is so awesome where I'm like riding my bike in the park and the skateboard kids are all there and they got the Ghetto Blaster radio. And I'm just thinking of how politics has become popular and cool today, and how in the 80s that was like about the dullest shit you could ever talk about. And I went up to these kids, I'm like, who are you voting for in the election? Like, they're like, Metallica, pussy, Metallica.
Unless they were punk rockers. If they were punk rockers, it was a different story.
So it was so cool to revisit that time period and just, you know, and that's, but for all intents and purposes, my character's an anti-hero. He's a murderer. He kills a lot of people that fucked him over. He has an episode of PTSD, and I was able to approach my writing like work, Mark, because I was suspended from work at the time. I was able to approach it like a full-time job. I was going through, you know, personal things, whatever, and I was able to do it, and it was beautiful in that time. You know, I got up like you. I made the coffee. Feed the cat. Got to feed the cat because you can't have him hungry and he'd just chill with me. He wasn't even my cat at the time. And I got to really get to that place, and the research and everything was a big part of that, but it was like able to go into that time period, you know. Like off the top of my head, I think the San Francisco Giants are in the 1988 World Series. Yeah, I haven't cared about baseball in a long time, but they had the earthquake in San Francisco. It's like, oh yeah, that happened. And you know, you look up your timeline on Wikipedia, what happened there. And one last thing, Chuck asked you, Mark, about the catharsis of it, and you said, yeah, it's good to get things off my chest. Oh, I love that part of it. I love to get things. I have murdered so many real people in fiction that it's overwhelming to me.
Oh yeah,
there are people I'll come across sometimes, and I'll see them, and it's like they don't even matter anymore because they're dead to me.
yeah.
They're dead. I killed them in the story. They're dead.
I killed.
Bothered me.
I killed a guy in Law Lizards too. That's real. Somebody that he was very abusive to somebody really close to me, and I turned his lights off real quick in the fucking book. And also, what was the title of that book again? Not The Avenger, but the other one you were talking about.
Oh, the one I'm working on.
Yeah.
It's called A Problem with Everybody.
See, here's the funny thing about that. So the book I was talking about that like I've been working on that I've kind of put to the side for a minute, it's called Wretched Pricks. And it's all about how everybody's a piece of shit. And it has to do with a detective who's a piece of shit, his partner who's kind of a piece of shit, their captain's a piece of shit. There's a whole bunch of like slew of people. I just thought it was kind of funny because I'm like, that is the censored like fucking title of that.
You know, they always say Barnes and Noble will never put a book on their shelves that has fuck on the first page. Just so that was the policy. Like,
but I will never have a book at Barnes and Noble.
Never ever. Well, listen, guys, this has been fun. Listen, this is I lined you guys up because you guys are some of the best interviews I've had. By the way, if you have not seen any of my interviews, there's been a lot of like little references to our interviews in here. Definitely check out my interviews with Mark Allen, Jason, and Chuck Nasty, and the one with Chuck Nasty, you'll find out about why he likes to eat ass. So if you want to find out that, definitely watch that one. So
Travis, thank you. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah,
great talking to you guys. You made my month 2025.
Hell yeah, man.
And
it's great meeting you all, man.
But this way, and you guys should follow each other too. But I'm gonna start with Chuck.
Yeah.
Chuck, where can everyone find you?
On my Facebook page, Chuck Nasty. Amazon is where you can get most of my all my work. I also go through which was once Unveiling Nightmares. It's now C.A. Bainham Books or Bainham Books, whatever it is now. And then I'll go ahead and do this, I'll do. And if you're curious about my band, Bastard Sons of a Judas Goat, Facebook page, Bastard Sons of a Judas Goat, Bandcamp, Spotify, YouTube, all those fun places. Yeah. Please buy my product.
Yes. Got a message. This was great to listen to. Thank you all of your thoughts and opinions. Always enjoy hearing and learning from other authors too. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Thanks for
Yeah.
watching.
Amen.
Mark,
Yes.
where can everyone find you?
I'm all over social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Twitter, Slasher. I am on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm everywhere. And as I like to say publicly, because it sounds good, all my books are available exclusively through Amazon. They are available in paperback, Kindle, and Kindle Unlimited. But yes, I loved it. Instead of saying, "Oh, I'm a self-published author," I'll say, "Well, I'm an indie author. I publish exclusively through Amazon," and it just sounds so much better, right?
It really does.
Right.
It really does.
Be professional to it.
Do marketing, man. Always be marketing. You know, it's all about that.
Always be closing.
Mhm.
Yes, always be closing.
My man Jason.
Yes. And this is what I always say. TimeTheAvenger.com is my website, or JasonMarinko.com. And my books, Time the Avenger and Jason Marinko's Starry Nightmares, are available worldwide from fine retails everywhere, online, in ebook and print. And we're working on the audiobook this year.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Just got a message from Dell Gibson. She's an author as well. She said, "Shit, I missed it. Sorry, Travis. Will we watch? It'll be up tomorrow. So yes, please rewatch if you haven't got a chance.
You'll have a blast. It's been a great time.
Hi, Del.
Yes.
Like, comment, and subscribe, Dev. Like, comment, and subscribe, rather.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Listen. By the way, I'd like to thank for everybody who's watched today. I mean, we had quite a bit of viewers,
Thank you.
which is always amazing. By the way, if you're first time, once again, come to this channel, definitely hit that subscribe, like, and also share. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to this another edition of Indie Horror Roundtable Live. I'm Travis Bruce. That's Chuck Nasty. That's Mark Allen. And that is Jason Marinko. We'll see y'all next time. Take care.
Take care.